when I was reading with him, he was one of those people. Most of us, when we come out of court at the end of the day, seem to flop around for about an hour and a half while, you know, relaxing, having a cup of tea or something. Keith Aickin would come back and get straight onto his, had an enormous practice. He got straight onto his paperwork, and he used to dictate into a little machine that he had there. Sometimes when he was doing interrogatories, and interrogatories take quite a lot of working out in order to get the sentence exactly right. You know, and Keith would do this entirely in his head, and I'd be sitting there thinking, you know, you've got yourself into a fix on this one. You aren't going to find a way out, and suddenly there'd be a prepositional clause and an adverb or something, and the whole thing would make grammatical sense. It was a very impressive intellectual performance. But he was a curious fellow, Keith. He was very, very reserved. But occasionally, sometimes interstate, if the case had finished or something, or it was still there, they might get him playing cards or something, and he was a completely different person. You know, Keith the gambler, quite different to his ordinary behaviour, but always precise. I remember talking one day having lunch up at the club, and it was a hot day, and I said, you know, really a day like this, you know, kind of, I can't help wishing I had a swimming pool. And Keith said, I think that even on a day like this, it's preferable to live next door to one. Nothing was going to be so hot. Swimming pools were a lot of work. Whether it was a hot day or not, they were still a lot of work. It was much better to live next door to one where you didn't have that than that's what I mean about Keith not getting carried away. The rest of us were all there nodding, but Keith was venturing a dissent. He was. There was a lot of stuff being said at that time about a fair share of the work. People were complaining that some people were favourites of the clerks. There really were only two clerks at that time. Nichols and Deaver were a partnership, and Jim Foley. Dave Callan was over in equity, but he looked after the equity people. The rest of the bar there was simply the two clerks. And people used to talk in terms of a fair share of the work. And I remember one of the few times I saw Keith really speaking angrily at a meeting of the bar that was held about this, where he's saying, look, I thought this is a competitive profession. There is no such thing as a fair share of the work. You know, there's what you can get or what you get, whatever, you know, it is.